Welcome, friends. We are recording live from the LBTQ Women's Inform, Inspire and Celebrate event in recognition of International Women's Week 2024. I'm your resident host, Meg Talks. For this episode, I am joined by Tabs from Butch Please.
Yeah.
What's happening, ma'am?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Do you know what? I've actually decided this is probably my best day in 2024.
Is it?
Yeah, it's been a highlight. How's today been for you?
Yeah, it's been amazing. It's been amazing people here, amazing conversations, really badly needed conversations, you know, and it's lovely for me to, because I run a club night, which is, great fun, and it's about partying and being out, and it's actually really nice for me to come and sit and talk about, I guess, some of the politics behind it and some of the ideas in a sort of more like calmer, more thoughtful setting, because I think people think clubs are just clubs. I don't believe that. I think for us, like queer clubs especially, like sometimes people describe it, as like going to church or whatever, but I think in some ways it is. These are the spaces we go that we don't have very often, that we, don't get to spend a lot of time in. And in the world, we often feel like we don't have space. So to go into those spaces and find our people and find ourselves is such a special thing.
And just for context, I've bumped into you downstairs after you did an amazing talk with, I think it was hosted by Shah Bailey, Ed Kaiser, and we had one other person also. Do you remember the person's name? It's flowing out of my mind. I have to add it in. Yeah. But I was really, really drawn to the topic of just the term butch. And as we were walking up the stairs, I was saying that from my culture, that's not a word that I've grown up with. Even within the black queer community, it's not a term that I'm familiar with. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time to firstly unpack what you do and also what the term butch means to you, and we can get into it. So just give us a little run through of that. Who's Tabs? Tell us a bit about your event, when it started and so on.
Yeah, so, I identify as a butch lesbian. I started identifying that way really in my early 20s when I met other older butchers, basically. And I started Butch Please, which is a club night for lesbian, trans and non-binary people. And it centres around butchness and celebrating butch and butch femme culture. And I started it really because I didn't feel that I had a home anywhere on the scene. So I just thought I'd start something for myself, really. I just wanted somewhere that I wanted to go out. And it wasn't really any bigger than that at the time. And it just took off. It was a really badly needed space. And it's grown and grown and grown from there. So now we're doing 800-900 people monthly in the Clapham Grand. I mean, it's bigger than I ever thought it could be. And that is down to the beautiful and amazing people that come every time and give their energy and their love to that space and connect with each other and be free and explore their sexuality and their identity. And so I'm super grateful for that. And as I said in the talk, like it's really been the honour of my life to curate that kind of space. And I guess specifically the kind of space where I feel at home as well. It's been life-changing for me, genuinely.
And why do you think it's been so successful in terms of the gap in the market that this event has filled?
Well, I think one of the big reasons is because it is really hard to run a club night, which is mainly, for women and butchers especially, because the whole scene and all the spaces are owned and run by white gay men on the queer scene or white cis straight men. And it's really, really hard to fight your way into that space. It is. And it's been tough. It has always been tough. And I have absorbed a lot of that. But I'm quite a belligerent person. So I think I sort of didn't give up on it. But it has been hard. Because they're not going to make space. You have to take it. And you have to make sure that what you do is successful and makes money, essentially, for those people. Because there is a huge market, and more than a market, there's a huge community. And, the Butch Please crowd have been extremely loyal and supportive, and I'm extremely grateful for that. But it's those people that have really made the space and made the night. But I think it is still badly needed, and I think you do need people a bit like me who have the sort of stomach for fighting for that space. And I don't talk about it a lot because I don't need recognition for that, actually. And I just want everyone to have a really amazing time and feel welcome and feel free. But it has been hard to fight for that space. And I think some people have the stomach for it and some people don't. Because it is really hard. Yeah.
And I think there's something really special in even being able to recognize and decipher what the specific challenge is, because sometimes, you know, I've gone into spaces in Soho when I was much younger, and I felt weird. I just felt off. I'm like, I know I want to party. I'm in a club in a quote unquote LGBT plus area. I'm queer. And they're playing music that I don't really mind. I wouldn't pick all of those songs, but some of them is all right. But I still feel funny. And I've realised that, speaks to what you were saying, this space wasn't specifically designed for me, and actually it's a male-oriented space.
Oh, yeah.
In that, and even as a mask-presenting person, that still doesn't feel right for me.
Yeah.
So I think just being able to identify that is a superpower, because there's a lot of us that just felt like, I feel off. I don't feel like I...
Well, you know, I identified it myself, like you did, basically. And I was seeking that level of freedom and acceptance in order to just relax and be myself and explore who I was, which is what most people, straight people, get to do all the time. Like, you know, it's like, we don't have those spaces. And I identified myself, and I knew that was something that I needed. And so I set about doing it. And it's, you know, it's not like, it's still a process. It's always a work in progress. I'm still working on it. We've gone quite big now, but as I say, I'm quite interested in kind of doing smaller events now again. And I think there's just a lot of need for it. And I think people, as long as people keep turning up, I'll keep doing it. That's it. It's a hugely rewarding thing to do.
So let's get into the term butch.
Yeah.
What does it mean for you?
So I don't know if you guys have heard of the poet Joelle Taylor, Butch Dyke, but she wrote a book recently, and it's quoting it, and it says, "They think we eroticise difference, but we didn't. We eroticise survival." And I think it's a really interesting quote, because I've often said that I think butch means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And we use slightly different words, like you said, to describe some similar and some slightly different things. But a lot of what defines my butchness is actually about survival. That is how I move through the world and how people react to me. And it's not often always good. I think there's a lot of negativity around butch, and there's a lot of... I've certainly faced and dealt with a lot of violence and threat of violence. And so really a lot of my identity is caught up with how I survive that. And that is who I am. And for me, a lot of my butchness is defined by that.
Do you think being butch is synonymous with being masculine, in your opinion?
So I don't, but a lot of people do, and I'm not criticising that in any way. I'm saying for me personally, you know, I often say I'm sort of bored of talking about masculinity. Everything in the world is about masculinity. Everything's defined around masculinity. And I do identify as a woman, and I am a gender non-conforming woman. But isn't there room for there to be all different types of women? And I'm much more interested in talking about all the different types of women that there are than saying, oh, you're just trying to look like a man. You know, I've often people said to me, oh, why are you trying to look like a man? And I'll say, well, okay, but why is it so hard for you to see me as a woman? And I think that's a much more interesting question. I'm much more interested in talking about women and talking about all the different ways we can be women, how we have to fight for that. Because actually, you know, there's a lot of us that fall into this category of so-called incorrect women, like, you know, and I don't buy that. And so for me, I don't talk about masculinity that much. I don't talk, you know, I understand what people mean when they reference it around butchness, and it's totally, I get that. But for me, I'm much more interested in talking about different types of women. I think it's a more urgent debate, to be honest. I think it's more urgent.
I think that response shows the dynamicness within our community, because outside of the world of LGBT plus, people think that being butch means that you are more masculine inclined, and want to show up and represent yourself in a very specific type of way, and it is synonymous to masculinity for them. But for you, like you said, there are but I'm not a man. It means so much more, you know. with that being eliminated, which I think just this conversation alone will be quite thought-provoking in that respect. And culturally, where I'm from, you know, we use the word stud. We use the word mass presenting. There's soft studs. There's all kind of variations within all of that. But within that, even if I take kind of non-binary and gender fluid people out of that just for a moment and talk about people that identify as women within that space.
Yeah.
There's what it represents is a spectrum of womanhood.
Yeah.
And that woman, being a woman doesn't have to look or feel any particular type of way. And that's been my journey in really understanding that, actually, do you know what? I'm just a variation.
Yeah.
And
a valid
it's
one.
not always, I'm not always, there's not necessarily lots of people like me in the grand scheme of things, right? Especially when you look at the percentage of black people that live in the UK. I'm like a minority within a minority within a minority. So not necessarily seeing people like yourself and understanding that actually, I like to wear what I like to wear. Just so happens that it comes from this department, but actually this comes from, my shoes come from the women's department right now.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just being able to really speak to that fluidity, speak to that, and that that being a mask, being stud, being a butch can be tailored to you. It doesn't have to be plug and play.
No, and really what it's all about is about freedom and the kind of freedom that a lot of women don't have. And a lot of trans and non-binary people as well, obviously. But like, you know, and really when I say women, I do include trans women in that. Obviously the most persecuted group within the category of women, and the most incorrect, I guess, are seen as the most incorrect. But I think we should be able to explore that as women. And I think a lot of us, we sit right at the front of that. That's sort of like that battle. And that's why, you know, take a lot of shit, essentially, because we're right at the front pushing the boundary of what it is to be a woman. And especially if you are visibly butch or a stud or mask, you're really asking that question of people, and they don't like it a lot of the time. You know, they don't like it. And that's, you know, I've come to accept that that's my journey. It's not always easy, but it is my journey. And I will fight until my last breath for there to be all different sorts of women in the world, because, you know, it's just not right that there isn't, you know, and it's not right that there's one way to be a woman and 100,000 ways to be a man. Like, I just, you know, don't accept that.
So for all the young butch, mask, studs that could be tuning in right now, what would you say to them as a word of encouragement and a word of wisdom?
Well, you know, I have spoken in the past about how difficult it can be, about violence, about things like that. And actually I stopped doing that generally because of young people, and because I want young people to know that sometimes it is difficult, but I can tell you 100% that I have the most fulfilling life that is exactly the way I want it to be, and that it has been filled with love and friendships and adventures and great sex and
come on,
amazing times and just amazing moments, and that I wouldn't trade that for anything. You know, so that it sometimes is hard, but it's worth it. It's good. Trust me, it's good.
I feel it. I feel most powerful, most certain, most confident when I'm being me. Yeah,
totally. Be yourself. Follow your heart.
And I say to all of your young bucks out there that don't fall into the trap of feeling like you have to show up in a certain way.
Yeah, definitely.
That you have to walk a certain way, that you have to dress a certain way, have a certain type of hair. Wear what you want to wear and do what you want to do. And once you're there, it's a flex. Yeah. It is a big flex. And
definitely.
And I'm like, that's where you find success. However you define success in your own personal self, that's where you tend to find it in your own authenticity. So
100%.
Tabs, it has been amazing. This one was off the cuff.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
It was off the cuff, but I'm glad that you're here. And folks, stay tuned for another episode.